ask really of, in light of the fact that the maps were debuted after this body, a majority of this body approved going forward with the P3, and we did not have the benefit of those maps. I think it's imperative that we understand our legal rights at this time. So I would like to ask if we can direct the CARPO attorney to provide a legal opinion with citations as to whether the previous resolution is in fact an irrevocable legal bar to rescinding the approval for the P3 for I-77.
Okay, so that's not made in the form of a motion to amend the agenda. Please, folks in the audience, we're going to run the meeting as quietly as we can tonight, respectfully. Mr. Driggs?
So, Mr. Chair, I discussed that with Commissioner Altman, and I believe that we can request that the attorney provide the opinion that has been asked for and get the benefit of the answer to that question. I will note, though, since you pointed out the issue of the maps, in my opinion, it's possible they come back and say it's not legally binding. I believe this body made a promise, entered into an agreement with NCDOT, and it is my view that we should honor it. But if we want to get the benefit of that opinion, I think we should move forward and just ask the attorney to provide it without objection.
Board, I'll turn to you. You've heard from Ms. Altman, Mr. Driggs. The request is to direct the staff to engage our attorney. Ms. Altman, could you repeat the words you used? And I think we can probably get board consensus on this.
Yes, sir. It's to direct the CARPO attorney to provide a legal opinion with citations as to whether the previous resolution approving the P3 for I-77 is in fact an irrevocable legal bar to rescinding.
Okay. By consensus, can we ask the staff to do that? We won't add it to the agenda tonight or a future agenda, but that feels reasonable. Any objections? All right. Thank you, Ms. Altman.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Altman. Back to the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second for the agenda?
Moved.
Motion and second. All in favor? Thank you. All right. Next, we're turning to the public comment period. Thank you guys for turning out, all of you. Big crowd tonight. Here's our policy on public comment. I'll be very, very clear on this. By bylaw, we're 20 minutes of public comment, a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. If you do the math, that's about 6. Ironically tonight, or coincidentally, we have 10 speakers signed up. So let me just encourage speakers, and I've got them ranked in order from the order you signed up to speak. If you would choose to limit your comments to 2 minutes or so, we should be able to get everybody in. Is that okay? We'll keep time here. I'll give you the hands up when you're at 2 minutes, and while you're allowed 3, I'll give you the hands up. You may cut it off short if you'd like. Fair enough. I would also ask just to maintain order. Sometimes we get issues in front of this body, not often, but sometimes with some strong emotions and feelings tied to them. So I would encourage you, so we can make the best use of our time, get everybody heard, hold any applause, comments, screaming, yelling, for or against to yourself. I'd appreciate that. First up, Mr. Hall.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ricky Hall, and I'm speaking on behalf of the West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition. But more importantly, I think I come tonight speaking on behalf of what I call the Greater West communities. And that goes from McCrory Heights to the middle of the West Wilkerson corridor to the Transforming Nations Forward area. I think we speak together when we say to put a pause on this particular initiative. But more importantly, what I'd like to do is to give you a sense of how this impacts the West Wilkerson corridor. This memo outlines and gives an overview of the displacement risks that are facing the West and Wilkerson corridors as Charlotte advances major multimodal infrastructure projects. It outlines the urgency of intervention and the specific policy actions required to protect long-standing residents, legacy homeowners, and historically Black neighborhoods. The West Wilkerson corridor sits at the epicenter of Charlotte's multimodal future. Nearly every major infrastructure initiative intersects with the community. from I-77 expansion to the proposed Silver Line or the approved Silver Line at this particular point, to airport growth and growth from the multimodal rail alignment. Redevelopment pressures tied to regional mobility investments. These projects will shape the future of the corridor for generations. Without protections, they will also accelerate displacement. This is not an argument against transit or infrastructure. It is an argument about who gets to stay, who gets to benefit, and who gets to build wealth because of it. Our analysis of land use speculation patterns and infrastructure proximity shows that, particularly in Zone 1, the West Boulevard, Wilkinson, and Clanton areas in the airport edge, is at the highest risk of displacement within 3 to 5 years due to investor activity, which is already increasing. Land values are rapidly rising. Historically, Black neighborhoods sit directly in the path of future transit and airport expansion. If no protections are enacted, national patterns indicate that there will be a 20 to 25% of households displaced in Zone 1 alone, up to 1,125 families and nearly 3,000 residents pushed out. Across all proximity zones, displacement could reach nearly 6,000 people. This displacement will not occur through bulldozers or eminent domain. It will occur through rent increases, tax foreclosures, speculative land assembly, redevelopment, and aging multifamily housing. Quiet displacement, slow displacement, and permanent displacement. The city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County already possesses the tools needed to prevent this outcome. What is missing is the political will to deploy them.
Thank you,
Here's our
Mr. Hall.
recommended actions to stabilize
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
and protect.
3 minutes.
I'm done.
Yes, that was 3 minutes. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Thank you much. And I do have a copy of my complete statements. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Hall, if you'll leave your statements back here at the table. Thank you. Mr. McCutcheon?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Robert McCutcheon. I'm the CEO of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. As some of you may remember, we have come to speak in support of the I-77 South project since it became a more common agenda starting in 2022. This corridor is one of the most important corridors in Charlotte throughout the region, and given the commerce that travels along the nearly 11 miles, it is not an exaggeration to say it's one of the most important segments in the state of North Carolina. The numbers are well known at this point, but worth reiterating. 157 residents moving to our region per day. Our region will see a 50% increase in population by 2050, just 24 years from now. 160,000 vehicles per day travel a portion of the 11 miles of this corridor, and travel discrepancies range from nominal to nearly an hour on just this segment. The corridor has a crash rate 2.5 times greater than the statewide average for urban interstates. Charlotte, that growth must continually be managed, and we must plan more proactively. If we plan more proactively, the better our decisions. The latest INRIX study had found Charlotte drivers lost 48 hours to traffic in 2025, a 17% increase from 1 year earlier, ranking the city as the 18th most congested in the nation. We cannot delay. Your leadership in this project has afforded us the time to discuss and find solutions to the most worrisome of concerns. I want to thank this board for all of the hard work and putting in place transparency safeguards that ensure continued outreach and public feedback. The current planning dates back nearly 20 years to the Fast Lane study and is scheduled to continue into the 2030s before construction designs are even finalized. We fear unnecessary delays will create a situation where population demands will force decisions that are not as inclusive as this process. We do not need to throw 20 years of work away. We just need to continue the partnership with NCDOT that is a result of the comprehensive review by you and your predecessors. I want to thank you for your continued service, and we look forward to continuing our partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reverend Dr. Garner Mullins.
Good evening. members of this body, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here representing a coalition of neighborhood residents whose homes, histories, and daily lives are directly impacted by the proposed I-77 expansion, particularly along the West Boulevard and Wilkerson Boulevard corridor. CRTPO's mission speaks of leadership, collaboration, and equitable transportation system. For the communities that I represent, equity is not a planning principle, it's a lived experience. For many of our neighbors, I-77 has never been just infrastructure. It's been a dividing line. Past transportation decisions displace families, fracture communities, bonds, and weaken generational wealth. Today, residents fear itself that the history is not behind us, but repeating itself through market pressure instead of bulldozers. The corridor now sits at the center of Charlotte's future, surrounded by highways, airport growth, and proposed transit. That visibility is not neutral. It triggers speculation long before construction begins. In some neighborhoods, displacement is not a 10-year concern, it's already unfolding. And displacement today does not arrive with demolition crews. It arrives through rising rents, through property tax foreclosures, small landlord selling, through aging apartments redeveloped that's out of reach. Growth is real, safety matters, mobility matters, but growth without protection is not progress. And mobility that comes at the cost of community stability is a burden that has been placed on these communities many times ago and continue to be placed. We're not asking CRTP to stop planning, we're asking you to act before the window closes. Waiting until alignments are final or designs are complete does not preserve neutrality. Delay does not protect communities. Delay locks in displacement. Transportation should connect people to opportunity and not disconnect them from their homes. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Mr. Guard? Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for hearing us today. My name is Cole Garday. I'm a recent Air Force veteran and a Charlotte native, proud to be so. I'd like to query the economic impact of the 77 South toll lanes and what mistakes we can avoid by learning from past mistakes of other cities in this nation. Cities like Houston, Phoenix, Dallas, and a lot of us are probably familiar with Atlanta, have had toll lanes added to their cities and never really outran the induced demand traffic congestion that came along with those extra lanes. We have a chance to be different. Charlotte has grown 93% in the last 20 years since 2005, and that rate has only accelerated in recent years. Building out high-capacity options is our only chance to meet that demand in an operational and fiscal way, which I'll explain here in a moment. Per the Beyond 77 report, 7.5 out of 10 surveyed would support rail and high-density options, and train ridership as a whole is up across the state of North Carolina. By reflecting on the successes of the Blue Line, the Silver Line and Red Line could increase corridor real estate value 9% annually immediately as it goes in. And in 50 years could create nearly $5 billion of tax revenue from property taxes alone of this development. It is a system that could help pay for itself in the coming decades, and these corridors are likely to encourage multifamily housing, keeping pace with the current housing demand and shortage that we experience today. Contrary, the city will see little congestion relief from additional lanes being added and make zero revenue until the P3 contract ends around 2080. On top of making no revenue, the elevated lanes would likely need to be replaced or incur major maintenance funds to be upkept, saddling the city with a major liability after that contract ends and the contractor is no longer maintaining them. This should be likely in the multi-billions, and that's of 2026 dollars, let alone what 2080 or the turn of the century may look like. Other programmable adjustments could be made to help ease 77 throughput, though. Working with GPS companies that we all use every day, such as Google Maps, Waze, Apple Maps, could automatically route traffic to the west section of 485 and function as the bypass that it was always intended to be around the city. Changing interstate code requiring freight trucks to use the bypass could also help instead of going up the lanes of I-77 through the city. Lastly, metering or structurally changing exits along the I-77 corridor here in Charlotte to better accommodate drivers would ease bottleneck issues and alleviate some congestion measures. I asked Chairman Richardson to please reopen this issue of I-77 and consider the rest of these options and maintain transparency with the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Genetian?
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm not going to repeat what has already been said. We're all fortunate that we live in a region that it's vibrant and growing every day. And we have our growing pain, but I believe that they're all manageable if we address those challenges when we need to. Obviously, traffic issues have become a major issue for us throughout the city, but in particular with I-77 South. And it's been magnifying every day. And it's gotten to a point that doing nothing is not an option. And I know that we have spent a lot of time in our community to take a look at everything that we have in front of us. And I know you guys voted a couple of years ago to move forward with the plans and working with DOT. And I know that there's a lot more work that needs to be done to make sure that the plans are put together in a manner that would take care of all the issues. And I do know that we got to do a better job of communicating with our all the constituents and all the stakeholders. But please, make sure that we don't stop the plans, and we got to stay on the track. I know that we have to work on doing whatever we needs to be done to improve the plans, and I hope that you do that and allow us to do that, because the issues on 77, which by the way impacts every other parts of our community, it's only going to magnify, and it's going to cost more to address it. And now is the time to do it. And I hope that you guys make that decision, knowing that we still have a lot of work that needs to be done. And hopefully we can improve the plans and do something that would appeal to the whole community. And thank you.
Mr. Langley?
Good evening, CRTPO. Sean Langley, resident of McCrory Heights. Nobody is building double-decker highways right now. In fact, they've been demolished. Look at cities like Seattle, Chattanooga, San Francisco, Portland, St. Louis. All these cities have decimated these concrete barriers that provide communities with tailpipe emissions that are harmful to public health. And even CRTPO previously adopted a Beyond 77 report where there was 286 recommendations. Not one of those recommendations included adding additional toll lanes. And so our request for you today is to put a pause on this project. You all have the vote to pause this project. It may need to be a special session, but we need you to pause this project because NCDOT right now is not serving the public's interests. And that's why you see so many individuals that are so passionate here today asking for this project to be placed on hold. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Good evening. We've all talked about the impacts on the community. No one who is opposed to this project is saying that we don't need to do things to manage congestion. What we're saying is this is not the right way to do it. And what we're saying is if we're investing in things like mass transit, that has a higher return on value for the businesses. Not just in terms of economic returns, but social returns. Because if people can bike and walk and things like that, and if you look at places like the South End, it's about 1% of the land and it's billions of dollars in revenue in the entire county. Why is that? Because of the density, the number of people that can walk there, people number that want to live there. And with 175 people moving a day, we're not going to solve it by building more lanes and putting another person in an individual car in a toll lane. That's not going to solve congestion. The engineers know that. Those of us that have been doing this for a long time know it's not going to solve the problem. So we're asking that you respectfully respect the wishes and look at alternatives. You know, yes, some of these interchanges on 77 definitely need to be improved. They're terrible. They're old. They're outdated. No one's going to argue that. But we don't need toll lanes. We need other ways to manage our traffic and the people moving to our cities, to our city. And I'm asking respectfully that you consider delaying or stopping the project, because as the Southern Environmental Law Center attorney has pointed out, CRTPO has previously said that with the city of Matthews, that they didn't want a project to go forward, and CRTPO voted to kill that project. So there's at least some legal precedence for you guys to do it. Thank you.
Mr. Cohn, welcome back. Sorry, mic was off. Mr. Cohn, welcome back.
Just get my timer ready. Oh, you're gonna put the hand up at 2. Okay.
Go ahead. We've got one more speaker following you, so we'll be good. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I do have other comments that I signed up to speak about, but I just want to touch on so over 3 weeks ago, I submitted a public records request for NCDOT for the number of bids, SOQs on the project, and still no answer to that. It's a pretty quick answer, how many bids it is. If there's a reason, please share with me why that hasn't been shared. I would consider that to be constructive denial, and I may take it to open government unit under the North Carolina Department of Justice. Okay, what I'm here to speak about is a separate issue. Alexis Wilkins, July 26, 2021. On this date, my friend Alexis Wilkins, a pedestrian on the 500 block of Mallard Creek Church Road, was struck by a driver. Because of this, she died, and her family is now without a loved one. I can tell you that tonight, I have never had a friend as pure and kind-hearted as Alexis. Today, Councilmember Driggs, I speak to you. Over a year ago on January 15th, 2015, I told you about the incident. You told me to email you the details, which I did that night. Tonight, I hold back a flurry of negative emotions after learning that there was money to improve the road last year and that the money was wasted. However, perhaps that's my fault. I did not include specific details on the request. So I am awaiting word from the detective who worked the case on where a crosswalk could be put in as she was trying to cross the street when she was hit. I also would like sidewalks put on that road, and I'd be glad to take a trip out there and look at it. Yeah, I just want to put that out there. If any board member would please bring Mallard Creek Church Road up for consideration. I don't see why money should be going unwasted and people are dying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. Last speaker is Mr. Hunan. Have I said that correctly? Hunan, thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, CRTPO. First, I just want to thank all the members of the community and activists who know the history, live the history, and who have been graciously patient with the rest of us while we wake up and start figuring out how to make our local governments work for us, instead of giving our public assets away to literal oligarchs and private equity firms. I'm here to focus on the public-private partnership side of the equation. We're told our choices are between having taxpayers fully fund this or having a P3. There's been no discussion about municipal bonds. There's no discussion about doing this in phases. And instead, we're told that we absolutely need to do this P3 to push through, and otherwise it will derail what the plans are. But in reality, what's the harm in a three-month, 4-month, 6-month delay to understand what the financing terms are? What are the expected revenues, right? What are the expected splits? Are all of the revenues going to go to a private consortium for 50 years? Is that billions of dollars that could at least be split to fund transit, to fund underserved communities? And instead, we're being told that this needs to go through expeditiously for no reason. Please delay this. Please prioritize communities. There's precedent to pause this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks, for turning out. That concludes our public comment section of the agenda. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Neil for item number 4.
In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflict of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any of the matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved.
Hearing none, let's move to item number 5, consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
To approve?
Second.
All in favor, please?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. We have 3 items on the agenda. 2 are for information, but this one is for action tonight. I'll recognize Andrew Ventresca from the town of Troutman, who's the chair of our technical coordinating committee, to talk about our discretionary funds project recommended projects. Thank you very much, Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. This is about the 3rd time you've heard this presentation, so I'll be brief. We are looking for action tonight for the 2025 call and the related TIP amendments. The amount of money we have available is $51.5 million, and this is available from fiscal year 29 through 31. These show the roadway projects that have been submitted for this money. There's 6 projects. 2 of them are shortfalls. This was included in your packet, and you have seen it in the past. The ask for the roadway projects is approximately $15 million. The non-roadway projects, there's 5 of these, 1 being a shortfall. Again, this list was in your packet. The total being requested this time around is a little bit over $10 million. And we do have 5 planning studies, which you've seen in front of you. Again, they're on the screen and we're in your packet. Total we're looking for this is a little bit over $600,000. So this slide just breaks down the amount requested this time around. We've got about 15 for highway, 10 for bike ped, and about 600,000 for planning. You can see the percentages is what's asked. So the total recommended for this call is almost $26 million. This is very important. What this means is we have about $26 million available to start next year. So I recommend that you talk to your staffs about any projects that you might like, because we've got a nice chunk of change ready to start next year's call. And again, this is, you've seen this 3 times. We are asking for action tonight, and I'll open it up for any questions the board has of me.
First, let's get a motion, then we'll get a second, then we'll have discussion. May I have a motion to approve the discretionary fund allocations as recommended?
So moved.
And a motion and a second. Are there discussion? Hearing none, may I have all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Raise your- Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. I'll recognize staff member Neil Burke and Allison Flewitt from Kimley Horn. Talk about the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This does not require action. This is information only.
Thank you. We have a brief update tonight. This is an information report. As the chair said, we're leading up to action to adopt the 2055 MTP next month. A lot of the work to develop the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan occurred last year in terms of finalizing the scenario planning, developing the revenue forecast, completing the congestion management process, requesting projects to be evaluated, and then completing the fiscally constrained project list, which was the focus of the second phase of public engagement last summer. We recently completed the third phase of public engagement yesterday. That began on January 12th, and the focus was the draft report. This is the draft report, again, focus of the public comment period in January and February. There are 9 chapters to the draft report, and participants could access the report on our website and utilize a survey to provide written comments to us. They could also provide just general comments about transportation in the region. Part of the approval process next month will be an air quality conformity determination because we're a non-attainment for ozone. This is conducted for our fiscally constrained project list within the 2055 MTP, and this is done concurrent with our neighboring MPOs, the Cabarrus-Rowan MPO and the Gaston-Cleveland MPO, because their MTP schedule has to align with our MTP schedule. The outcome of the conformity determination report is that it's found to conform with the purpose of the North Carolina State Implementation Plan, and the anticipated emissions from the implementation of the MTP are in conformity with the 2008 8-hour ozone standard. So the draft conformity determination report was posted on our website. It was mentioned in all of the media releases. And again, the phase 3 of public engagement focused on the draft MTP report and the conformity determination report. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison Fluitt with Kimley Horn. She's going to provide us with a summary of phase 3 of the public engagement process.
May I ask a question before he moves on?
Ms. Altman is recognized.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that we're a non-attainment for ozone?
We have been a non-attainment for ozone for at least 20 years.
Are you talking about the CRTPO footprint or Mecklenburg County? Can you be?
It's parts in our planning area. It's parts of Iredell, all of Mecklenburg and Union County. And this has been something since the 1990s.
Okay, I will look forward to circling up with my team. Thank you.
Sure.
So thank you all. Happy to be here to talk to you about the conclusion of our phase 3 public engagement effort. So as Neil told you all, our public engagement period for this phase ran from January 12th and it just concluded yesterday. The intent of this round of public engagement was, as Neil told you, the plan review. We wanted folks to have the opportunity to take a look at our draft plan and offer comments and feedback as well. So for our phase 3 activities, again, we were really focusing on visibility here, giving folks as many opportunities as possible to socialize the plan and give that visibility for review as folks could as well. So our digital engagement included a webinar that was provided in both English and Spanish, as well as a digital survey and open comments. Our presentations and activities consisted of a series of community pop-up meetings that were held across the region. These were done to really just boost that visibility again, direct people back to the website so they could talk about the plan through our digital survey and comment period, and just have a chance to flip through that document online. I mentioned those pop-up events. This just gives you the rundown of all of the different locations where those pop-up events were held. In addition, we had the opportunity, Neil actually presented to the Town of Matthews Transportation Advisory Committee and Environmental Advisory Committee. That was on February 6th. Just talking a little bit more about our pop-up events. These were scheduled in public locations across the region. We tried to intentionally schedule these where there was another activity already happening in each one of these locations so that we'd have as many eyes on our tables and our materials as possible. One of the things we observed, we actually can track the visits and the clicks on our site. We did notice an uptick every single time that we did have our tabling exercises through these pop-up events. So we were ultimately successful in boosting the visibility of the plan and this round of surveys. Something that was fun, you just see a selection of photos here. In 3 of our different locations, we actually offered hot chocolate stations as well to try to lure people over to kind of linger, take a look at our materials, ask some questions, and then hopefully scan the QR codes to hop over to the website. And those were very successful as well. You can just see a quick screenshot here of this is what our plan looks like in that online format. And then also a quick grab of what our survey looked like online. So a quick summary of some of our numbers. This is actually as of yesterday morning. Technically, we closed things at 5 p.m., but we wanted to make sure we had all our numbers loaded up in the presentation and ready for you. But what you'll see here is we have visits to our survey site. So this is just getting eyes on the survey site. And again, that's where our plan was located. We had over 500, close to 600 visits to the survey site. And then we can parse that down to who among those were actual individual unique visitors to our survey site. So of those 577 visits, over 400 of those were unique participants to the survey site. We had 60 data point contributions as well. And then you can see our overall visits to the MTP website and the views of the webinar that went through and kind of walked through the plan as well. So overall, very pleased with the level of visibility that we were able to achieve through this 3rd phase of engagement. Now I'll pass it back to Neil to wrap us up.
Thanks, Allison. So as I mentioned before, we had the 3rd phase of public engagement that began on January 12th. It wrapped up yesterday. And then action will be requested for the CRTPO board to adopt the 2055 MTP and make an air quality conformity determination on that fiscally constrained project list at the March 18th board meeting. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions that you have.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Neil. I have a little bit of discretion as board chair, and it was brought to my attention that one speaker that signed up, number 6 in the order, I completely skipped, which I admit. So unusual, I know, but may I ask the board permission to have Ms. Shauna Bell come up and have 2 minutes to speak, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry about that. Ms. Bell? My apologies.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Shauna Bell, and I am a resident of McCrory Heights. Earlier this week, I emailed each of you expressing my opposition for this I-77 project. I mistakenly stated that the public meetings revealing the maps were held on November 4th and November 5th. In actuality, it was November 12th and 13th, giving the community 24, not 30 days to comment on this large project. 24 days during the Thanksgiving holiday when attentions are scattered. That 24-day window is what has been described by NCDOT as extensive community engagement. If that's extensive engagement, then we have seriously lowered the bar to a dangerously low levels. Meaningful engagement is not a presentation, it's not a drop-in session, it's not a survey asking residents which 2 harmful designs they prefer. Meaningful engagement happens before contracts locking us into a 50-year commitment are signed, not after. Residents along this corridor were presented with a bad plan and a worse plan that both significantly degrade our quality of life with increased noise, increased air pollution, and another permanent structural division of communities. And when the option that saved houses was selected, we were told this reflected what the community wanted, as if we would shut up and make it, and as if we would shut up and that made us satisfied. That does not feel collaborative, it feels procedural. For months, we have experienced finger pointing between CRTPO, City Council, and NCDOT, who has the final authority to pause this project. That feels like an intentional ruse. It feels like the outcome was determined before we ever had a real opportunity to influence it. A spokesperson for CRTPO was quoted in the February 12th Charlotte Ledger article as saying that August 15th of last year was the deadline to stop this project, but designs were not even made available until November. Who agrees to a $4.3 billion commitment without seeing the blueprint? Neighborhoods along this corridor have endured highway disruption multiple times. We should not have to do it again under the banner of progress and growth. For those in the business community, I ask you, are you willing to have this come into your neighborhood for the sake of growth? Pause this process, require real engagement. We deserve better than a checkbox. We deserve better engineering. We deserve better than business community being allowed to get paid for the disruption of our homes, and we deserve better leadership. Charlotte can and should grow, but it must grow in a way that honors its commitments, protects its historic communities, and reflects the future it claims to be building. Do not let history record that we were once again asked to speak, but not listened to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Right. Thank you. All right, item number 8, I recognize Bob Cook, our Unified Planning Work Program. Again, information only. This is also known as our budget. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's presentation, the purpose of tonight's presentation is to review the second draft. And in your agenda packet, you had a memo about the UPWP as well as a funding allocation table. So I'd refer you to those documents in your agenda packet. In terms of our agenda tonight, we'll talk about the funding summary, the funding sources and projects table, and then next steps. So funding. This is a correction from what you saw at the January meeting. There was an incorrect amount listed there for the total in the bottom right-hand corner. That amount of $4.89 million is the correct amount of funding in at the FY27 work program. And then as to that funding sources and projects table that you had in your agenda packet, that shows all the proposed allocations, the planning dollars, the STBGDA dollars, Section 5303 funds from the FTA, and the carryover projects. These are projects from previous fiscal years that we need to fund again next year. And then the local projects being the ones that you approved earlier this evening as a part of the discretionary grants program action. And then the biggest takeaway, I think, tonight from about the UPWP is that the allocations are largely mirror what are in the current FY26 work program. Not a lot of changes. And this is a reflection of the fact that we say this a lot, most of what we do is cyclical in nature. We do it year in and year out, or maybe every 2 years. And it reflects also requirements of state and federal law. So that's why there's stability in the work program from year to year. There are some increases. The planning process category, you may have noticed an increase of about $205,000. That is reflective of the fact that that category is kind of a kitchen sink category, if you will. A lot of different activities that we engage in are found in that category. The comprehensive transportation plan and that CTP 2.0 item there on the screen, and a revision to our comprehensive transportation plan based upon new guidance from NCDOT. All our performance-based planning activities, and that's a key activity for next fiscal year that we've identified, the Beyond 77 initiative and implementation of its recommendation, and then implementation of the regional transportation planning program. I'd also note that there was a modest increase for the land use modeling, the community viz category, and also one for our management and operations category, but relatively modest. So over these next couple slides, this just reflects what you have in your agenda packet. And this is limited to the Section 104F or the PL, the planning funds, and the STBGDA funds, Surface Transportation Block Grant Direct Distributable Funds. And you can see how the dollars fall out there, and the task code information there on the left-hand column. Similar thing to the previous, and on this one, you see those the special studies. These are those local projects, again, the ones you approved earlier this evening. And then lastly, some of the additional categories with management and operations at the end. That category is that basically funds all those day-to-day activities that are required for any organization, including the management of the grants that we received and allow us to operate. So in terms of next step, we'll be finalizing document design and also the task code descriptions and text, and be returning to you in March for adoption. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? So we'll be voting on this next month. I would encourage board members to take a look at the packet next month, to call Bob ahead of time. We can certainly discuss the budget in here, but budget is often boring. So let's ask Bob questions between now and next month and be ready to vote next month. Thank you, Bob.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll recognize Neil Burke to talk about upcoming agenda items.
The March 18th CRTPO Board agenda is anticipated to include the action to adopt the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and make an air quality conformity, as well as the approval of the FY 2027 Unified Planning Work Program. We're also anticipating an item regarding approval of a TIP amendment for the Federal Transit Administration, Section 5307, funding for Iredell County Area Transit System, and that will be included within the FY 2027 UPWP. I have two brief announcements. First of which, there are two critical actions. We have the federal deadline that we're under with the approval of the MTP at the board meeting next month. So just want to make sure we can get a quorum. So if anyone has a conflict for the March 18th board meeting, please let me know. I will be sending another email out. And we also are under a deadline for the FY 2027 UPWP, our budget. We do have to submit that to NCDOT by the end of March. One last quick announcement. Again, voting members must file their statement of economic interest or real estate disclosure. That has to be done by April 15th in order to avoid penalty. When I ran a compliance report for the 45 voting members, only 15 had successfully submitted both of those. So I would just encourage you all over the next couple of weeks to complete those online. It only takes a few minutes, especially if you're a returning filer from last year. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
I have a question, please. With respect to the announced upcoming agenda, can we please add an item regarding the report out from the attorney on I-77 South?
Ms. Altman, let me discuss that with you afterwards and Mr. Driggs about the way in which that we might have that ready well ahead of time and could be distributed to the board in advance. May we discuss that after the meeting?
Absolutely. I just don't want to fail to get it on the agenda in a timely way. So I wanted to preserve that by asking it now.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Item number 10, NCDOT Division 10 and 12 updates. I'll remind the board, you can click on the live link in your agenda. For those in the audience, it's available online, a list of projects, which constitutes most of their monthly updates. Mr. Stafford, anything additional? Mr. Obregon, District 10. Item number 11, board member comments. I'll open the floor for board member comments.
Over here.
Mayor Higdon.
Hello, I want to address the elephant in the room, and I want to preface my comments by saying that I really appreciate North Carolina DOT. They've been an excellent partner to my town of Matthews, and the work they've done, particularly in the western part of the state, is very admirable and commendable of late. In my town of Matthews, when a zoning petitioner comes forward and says we want to build a neighborhood or we want to build a commercial establishment, they typically will give their plan in generalities, but they'll come back with elevations that our board also approves at a later date. And I think that's the same way it's done most places. And in this case, we didn't see the elevations of this elevated highway. I can tell you that in my day job, I frequently used to go to Los Angeles quite a bit. And I visited a laboratory there that was right next to an elevated highway. And it was so loud outside that you literally had to scream to hear somebody a few feet away from you. So very loud. This afternoon, I Googled what major cities in the United States are building elevated highways or are planning to build them, and I found none. I did find that in the last 10 years, Milwaukee, Seattle, Rochester, New York, San Francisco, Vancouver, British Columbia, and a number of other cities have taken down elevated highways that they said were a mistake to build in the first place. Also, the cities of Syracuse, New Orleans, Detroit, and Dallas are considering taking down elevated highways that they say were a mistake to build in the first place. Where are elevated highways being built? They're being built in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Delhi, Sri Lanka, mostly third world countries that are very poor and have zero land, and they can only build the roads up because there's no other place to put them. And it's the most economical way to build. I know that Charlotte likes to consider itself a world-class, first-class city. And so I question why we would build an elevated highway. I think this project is very much important. I was on I-77 this weekend and the traffic is horrendous on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we need to do something, but I think we need to reconsider our options. And I certainly think this board should, I'm not an attorney, but I think this board, we are the elected officials. We should have the ability to pause and take a breath and consider other options. We do have the transit tax that's going to bring in billions of dollars, and perhaps there could be a way to do a cover and cap or something like that in this area that would be less impactful. But I don't think we should build an elevated highway in Charlotte right through the middle of a historically Black neighborhood.
So thank you, Mayor Higdon.
I hope we have the opportunity to
Folks,
pause.
may I ask for order, please? We can get through the rest of our agenda.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Higdon. Other comments? Hearing none.
I'll be heard then. Thank you.
Ms. Altman?
Yeah, and just to add, you know, I just want to cover for our partners in the state who may be listening, the chronology. You know, we engaged on this matter, well, my understanding is for a very long time before I got here, but since I've been here, which is about 4 years, we've received many, many briefings on the subject of I-77 South being a managed lane and a P3 and why it was necessary, and the fact that NCDOT has something like a $3 or $4 billion budget statewide, and this project alone costs $3.5 billion. And, you know, I think the public should know. I mean, in my opinion, you know, NCDOT is functionally bankrupt. If your revenues are grossly outstripped by your debts and obligations, that's a working definition of being bankrupt for me. So I don't know why they're cutting the corporate tax rate to zero because, you know, they think they have a surplus. Yeah, you'll have a surplus if you don't fund infrastructure. And to me, it's just a gross like derogation of government to not build infrastructure. As I've said before, I grew up in a time when you didn't have to pay to use public infrastructure. You could get on the road without having to pay. And it offends me, and it offends my sense of what is basically fair, and I think it's un-American to have to engage in this at all. What I think this board here has tried to do is to be reasonable stewards in light of what I think is a gross failure of state government, probably from both parties, because it's, you know, it's been more than a decade, I don't know, almost 2 decades that we've known that we had this problem because roads are funded by the gas tax. And as cars became more fuel efficient, and some in fact are, you know, electric, they take no fuel whatsoever, the revenues for the gas tax has been falling. And so we've known for the state has known for a very long time that their funding model for state roads was unsustainable. And it seems to me everyone's been kicking the can down the road and has left this body and similar, you know, across the state in a terrible position because, you know, I, for one, hate everything about this. But it's also been my duty to try to take the cards dealt this region and try to be a reasonable steward in the face of bad facts. But what I really don't like is when I feel that I've been misled or bait and switched. And we engaged around this table for months and years, and never once were we shown or discussed anything about the maps. It was about the funding model and the P3 and how a private company can front $3.2 billion so they can do it more cheaply than NCDOT, which would have to borrow it at a higher rate, even if they had the money, which they don't. All the discussions were about managed lanes and P3s, not a word about the maps. And I can assure you that I would have had a very different orientation if that had been remotely on the radar, but it wasn't. Not only was it not on the radar in the 2 briefings to the Board of County Commissioners, it was not on the radar in any of our briefings here the night we voted, even after we voted, and we went to have a subcommittee to develop key terms to protect the community from the mistakes of I-77 North. How many times did we meet, Mayor Higdon, for that? Many times. How many times? Mayor Stinson Wesson, we spent a lot of time in that subcommittee. And we developed wonderful key terms like we're going to have a cap on tolls. We're going to try to get a stipend to defray the cost for low-income households. And we're going to have a better disclosure of the cost if you get on. And we're going to be ensure that transit and buses can ride for free and carpoolers. We could have put a term in there about protecting neighborhoods that were in the pathway, but we didn't because we had no awareness, no visibility to this. Now, I asked this question to NCDOT, and you know what the response I got was? We said there would be significant reworking of the interchange. I completely reject that. And it is so important to me in my service to this community and in the partners with whom I deal. I might not like the answer. There may not be enough money. I might not, get the outcome I want. But I am a strident and vocal advocate for dispelling the notion that things are rigged. I don't like that. I don't see that. But this really feels that way. It really feels like a bait and switch because the most important term that had the greatest impact on my community that I serve and that my Board of County Commissioners is answerable to was not revealed until 2 months after this body arguably lost authority. And in fact, we weren't even given the maps here. We still haven't received the maps here. They've only been shared with the community. They still, to this day, haven't been brought here. So, I am just really very sideways with this. It was always something that was a hard thing to do and very complicated. But the way that it's been handled, and I've only touched on some parts of it. There are other things that the neighbors and residents here can talk about how their property's been trespassed on and, lines marked on it and, the period that Ms. Daly was talking about, 2 or 3 weeks over the holiday to engage. I'm just sorry. I just think that this whole thing needs to be paused. I think NCDOT should go back to the drawing board, refamiliarize themselves what it means to work with community and be a public servant. We can do hard things together. We can do difficult things and things under bad circumstances with bad choices, but only with transparency and consideration, which has really failed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Altman. Order, please. We'll recognize Councilmember Driggs and Mr. Osborne next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So colleagues, we're all in a tough spot here. We did some work over the last couple of years to consider the question of a funding modality. That's all. That's all we talked about. That's all we looked at. P3, and the irony was that we were told there was no money, so we were kind of pushed in a certain direction. The work that went into putting this project in the pipeline, all of the work that CRTPO has to do pursuant to federal law in order to put it up and score it and do those things, occurred in 2014. So then, after we had done that work, and I think you'll all agree, we saw nothing like what we're seeing now during the period that we were having those conversations. And we concluded, yeah, P3, that's the way to do it. And then a couple of months later, the maps came out and the public outcry started. So I think we just need to be clear. The recent action we took was about a P3, and that's all. And so we can't scrutinize that and find out whether there was something that we could have done to kill this thing on the merits of the project. Now, what we're left with is we have to think about how to deal with the response we got. I think we all feel burdened by the fact that there is such a loud outcry from the community and that there are people who think that we could do something. And the question is, if we did something, it would not relate to the decision that we made about the P3. It would relate to the decision that was made to put this thing in the first place. And the fact that we weren't members then, I don't know if any of us was a member then, means that we just need to think about whether we're motivated or what we want to do. The agreement that we have with NCDOT said that after they release the RFQ, we will not involve ourselves in that. And I believe that we should honor that agreement. So then what we're left with is a question of what else is available to us. Like, what else could we think about? We cannot go back and revisit the P3 because we voted on that and we agreed that we were done with that. So I'm working with a couple of my council colleagues, and I know Ms. Altman is working. We're trying to come up with a process in partnership with NCDOT to hear and respond to the what we're now hearing and weren't hearing while we were working on this before from the community. And it's a tough place we're in. I just want you to know, I think we're all in it. I doubt anybody here has not had a mailbox full, several mailboxes full. I think going forward, there may be an occasion, and Mr. Higdon and Ms. Altman were very outspoken. I just wanted to kind of clarify the terms of the debate. We would not revisit what we did in the last year or two. We would go back and look at what was done in 2014. Personally, my struggle here is that there is such a big gulf between the situation on the road and what NCDOT is trying to do and the position that's being taken by opponents. It's a rock and a hard place. I really don't know yet, right, how we do that. We're working on it, though. We are not ignoring, and there's about 18 months left before any contract is let. NCDOT has indicated that there will be outreach during that time. Maybe, Mr. Chair, what we need to do is just learn more about the outreach and find out what the members' preference may be in terms of our reporting on or watching what they are doing. But I really just have seen a lot of things about the P3 vote that we took, and I don't feel that that was an occasion when we could have killed the whole project or we're even looking at the merits of the project. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Osborne, please, folks in the audience, please, folks in the audience, this is not public comment. We're trying to get through the rest of our board meeting. Please respect that.
Thank you, board, for your comments as well. If we do find ourselves in a position where we have the opportunity for a pause to relook at where we are and what the next steps are, I would just ask this board to also reflect on some of the earlier conversation that we had. That conversation was that, hey, we recognize the toll lanes don't work the way we had hoped in the north, but it's just a learning experience. What I'd like to say is, look, let's take that learning experience, let's continue to learn, let's get it right in the north before we take it further back down into the south, and maybe it would be more receptive to the community. I think I would expect that some people also have a challenge with the fact that it's not working the way that they would hope for it to work in the north. And if we show the state's commitment to making it work properly, perhaps we'll rebuild some of the trust that's needed as we consider the other factors that we've heard from the public feedback during this feedback process as well. Thank you.
Other comments, please?
Yes.
Mr. Knox, Mayor Knox, sorry.
So for those of you that have emailed us, I read the first few. I didn't read the rest of them because they were copied and pasted, but I appreciate so much because I've been on the other side of the fight for I-77 because I live in Davison, and I was standing on the bridge protesting 10 years ago, the project that I pay $25 to drive to Charlotte on every day now. Our responsibility here was moving towards a decision on how to fund this. Our responsibility here was not the design of this project. Our responsibility here was not, nor did we know the impact of this project on so many. Realizing the shortfalls that we have in funding in DOT, we realized that if we're going to do anything now, that public-private partnerships are sadly the most viable pathways to choose. Learning from the mistakes in the north, we've put some checks and balances in this one in our small groups to have multiple bidders at the time of bid opening and things like that. But where we're at right now, I've heard pause, I've heard rework. This is a DOT project. DOT needs to figure this out. I think we're probably at past the point of no return of what our authority is as a body here. I think what can be done should be done on the DOT end. I hope in my heart of hearts that DOT hears what we've asked as a board, what you, the public, has asked as citizens and residents of Charlotte. And we come to some consensus about what next steps are. Because I think that the steps that we're looking at right now may or may not be the best steps. And for me, the negative impact on residents is paramount. When 77 North came our way, there were no displacements. All they did was cut down trees and add a couple lanes. There were no houses that were torn down or moved. There were no additional rights of ways that had to be created or anything else. So it was much, much less impactful. And this is an apples and oranges thing. This is not two parallel projects by any means. So, with that, I hope that DOT is listening. I hope that they genuinely get their hands dirty and talk to the residents and find a pathway that's conducive to all of us, because we're going to continue to grow. There's still going to be 160,000 cars a day in that corridor. Whether we add one more lane north and south or 10 more lanes north and south, it doesn't matter. That's not the answer. I think someone spoke to mass transit, rail. I think that we've got to start thinking that way. I am from North Carolina. I will probably die behind the wheel of my car because I'm hard-headed. But if I had a path to come to Charlotte on public transit, I'd be on it. So that's why I was a supporter for the transit tax, and I firmly believe that that's going to help us out. So with that, I'll defer.
Thank you, Mayor Knox. Other comments? Yes, Mayor Stinson Wesley.
I simply want to say thank you for those who have engaged. Thank you for paying attention. I also want to note, it will be reflected in the minutes at the attendance, but we did not have an NCDOT rep at the dais tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Stinson Wesley. Any other comments?
One.
Yes.
I know I'm from Marshville, and
Welcome.
Marshville is so far away. I tend to try to stay out of a lot of things. But with the information that was given when we first started, I thought I was basically helping to vote on issues with doing lanes, with not being privy to information of destroying houses and destroying just communities. I think I would have stepped up a little sooner. But I do agree that if it is needed. I do come to Charlotte from time to time. Do I like the traffic? No. Do I want to get on the bypasses? No, I don't, because I don't know what I'm paying. So I really sit in traffic like everybody else. But tonight has really enlightened me on a lot of things. It has enlightened me that we weren't given the information that we needed. I don't even think my board would have allowed me to sit here and not say anything if our communities were going to be destroyed. So I do want to say we do need to take our time, relook at it. Let's have further discussion, just a little more discussion. And again, like I said, I'm in Marshville. We don't travel that much on 77, except for the few people that may work in Charlotte, but we do need to look at it.
Thank you, Ms. Staten. More comments? Thank you all for, yes, Mayor Bell.
Maybe I was out the evening that the vote was taken, but I learned last month at the meeting that we had lost control of this, could not speak into it. And I was shocked to hear that. And so I agree that I feel like this board needs to have control back. It needs to have a say in it instead of giving it over to DOT. I think there is more work to be done, and more input to be said. But again, I was shocked to hear that we had lost control. And so I would like to see us get that back.
Well, thank you. And a reminder, the first of the meeting, that was the initial action we took by consensus to ask our CTO PO board attorney to give an opinion on that particular issue, but thank you. Yes. Mayor
Just a
Murray.
question, in reference to losing control, do we not have the final vote then on the contract for construction?
No, we do not.
We do not?
No, sir.
So the RFQ has gone out. Once the quotes come back, then DOT will decide based on the quotes. It will not be coming before the board again?
That's correct. So as stated before, and in previous meetings as well. So the project itself was always, not always, has been on the priority list for a decade or more. The discussion that this board had was related and voted in after a couple years of work, was related to the funding of that project that continues to be a community need. At that point, it became a North Carolina Department of Transportation project to implement, and that's the process that we're in now.
So there will be no,
There is no
basically,
board vote to approve the contract.
there's no check to ensure the key terms that we had voted on, discussed, and developed would be in said contract. So
I think the key terms that we voted were for inclusion in the RFP, which would be part of the evaluation period for the project.
but
Yes,
not necessarily a guaranteed inclusion in the contract.
I would assume so. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great questions. Anyone else? Thank you all for attending. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.